Good morning. Well, if you are in Vancouver or in the West Coast, we're morning. Good morning for all of you. You can see I sound a little bit asleep ill, but thank you so much for being here with me again. I'm super excited about today's host. When I got the chance to meet him back, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, I was pretty full or packed for my guests in the in my calendar. But when I heard everything that he does, it's like, ooh, no, let me squeeze you in because I think it will be really interesting for all the designers and everybody that works in tech to hear your story. So I'm super excited about bringing Adam in today. And as you saw, the title is How to Bring Tension as an empowered tool in a multidisciplinary team. And I feel like whoever that I had talked with, uh, tension and conflict has been always around when you work in a team. But I think what is interesting about what Adam is going to tell us is how to make this a great way to improve the team atmosphere, improve the product. So I feel like it's going to be really useful for all of us. A little bit about Adam. So he's a champion from human-centered solutions that have converged with business needs and objectives. He brings a unique mix of user experience, visual design, technical skills, and capabilities together with the business acumen and research to focus to create outstanding products, services, solutions, and experiences mutual benefit the user, the customer, and the business. Instead of me telling you about Adam, why don't we bring him in? So, Adam, welcome to UX and Tame. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Is it still morning for you too? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we start telling people a little bit about you, who you are?
Sure. So I've been in the UX and design field for about 25 years now. I started out as a graphic designer, and around mid 90s, jumped into designing for the web, and very quickly realized that if I want the experiences that I design to carry the fidelity, I'm going to have to learn how to build them. So I did that. And as the size and scope of projects that I worked on continued to grow and worked more onto the B2B and B2C side of things, user experience, which really wasn't a mainstream term at the time, became a key and critical component to what I did. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just obvious that we needed to do a lot more thought and strategy into the work and into the experiences that we were building.
Yeah, and I love that when you said, okay, we back then we were not calling it user experience; it was different. I love that usually. But okay, before we go into what we came for, why don't we tell people something that is something unique and interesting about you?
Well, today's my birthday, so that's one. So that's interesting well, at least for me it is. And this is my with tension. This is my second kick at running my own business, and I would say that two things. One, doing this with a business partner this time was very smart, and second, a lot of the learnings that I painfully went through in the first iteration of business is now something that we've built into the actual company, and it's really changed how we operate, and it's growing a lot faster than we had anticipated. And yeah, basically the internal team thing has been a difficult learning experience for me through the years, but yeah, I think that's probably the most interesting part is that I really need to lead. the experience.
Nice. Well, and I remember when we were booking this session and trying to find a date, you suggested your birthday. And I think this is a great way to start your birthday, just telling people your story and who you are. So that's, yeah, again, happy birthday, feliz cumpleaños. And yes, and we're going to talk about your company a little bit at the end of this, so people can know about how you do it and what you do at the moment. You already told us a bit about how did you ended up in UX design, but I think it would be nice to know, like, maybe a little more extension of how did you get where you are today.
Sure. So again, it was really when I started working more on the B2C and B2B side of things. In terms of experiences, I've spent a large portion of my career working on self-serve experiences for banks, for telcos, and also entire provinces. And when you're working at that scale, it's really not just about a seamless experience. It's about driving value and determining the right type of experiences to build so that you can get value quickly. And the challenge with those larger projects that sort of exposed me to the need for more strategy was a greater involvement with business teams and a greater involvement and depth of complexity for development teams. And when you start working with multiple stakeholders, you gotta make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed from a UX perspective. And that made me look more at traditional product design processes, where creating physical products and testing those and validating those ideas and iterating was something that was just a best practice. And I wanted to bring that level of rigor into the work that I did. So I looked at companies like Frog or IDEO and what were they doing when they were building these kind of physical experiences, and how could we translate that to digital? Now, by no means am I saying that I'm the innovator of these thoughts or processes, but that was my avenue. I kind of took a non-academic round trip into that kind of thinking, and I built it into how I design and why I design. Every single decision that I make from a design perspective has to be bound to some kind of benefit, either for the user or for the business, and ideally finding a balance between the two.
Nice. And I told you already that I love when people that have lots of experience of before that UX was like a thing, like as a terminology mostly, and it was used everywhere. You were there. How was that change, and when did you realize that that's what you were doing?
I'll be honest. I think I didn't really realize that I was doing it or doing it differently until the clients were saying, "Wow, you're more than just a designer." I'm like, "Okay, this is the way I do it." And it was unique because I started to hear that far more often from people that I worked with, both internal teams, both with clients. I would hear it from development teams. I would hear it from business teams, from product teams, and it was something that I just felt was the right way to go. And as the awareness of user experience and the popularity of user experience in the mainstream began to grow, it was very evident to me that that's where I sat more, just because of the level of thinking and the level of effort and the level of research that I was doing around the products that I was designing. As that progressed in terms of mainstream awareness, what I can say is there was a distinct shift in the perceived value of design, because there was a level of rigor. There was a visible process in place with UX that was starting to become established and repeatable. When you look at a business perspective, if they can understand that you're actually looking at the value of the experience, the return on investment of the effort time and money that you're putting into your product design, then you begin to speak more on similar terms and similar planes. And with that, the level of respect of UX specifically grew. I would say that graphic design and UI design is still a little latent in that respect. However, I don't necessarily feel that that's fair or valid, but that's a potentially other topic for another day.
That makes sense. Something about your story and when we met and that really resonated with me is the passion that you have about what you do.
Mhm.
And now you mentioned at the beginning now that this is your second ideation in like having a business, and then you are improving all the processes and you're bringing everything that you learned to your business today. But what is something that makes you come out of bed and feel excited about what is coming? Yes.
Challenge. The idea of waking up and being faced with new and potentially challenging opportunities to create something new, to improve the experience, to create to I'll boil it down real quick. To take something that exists, whether it be a concept or an idea in someone's head, or if it's an existing product, and dismantle it into all of its parts, and then sort of take everything that I've learned with all the industries and all the other clients that I've worked with, and then reassemble that into something completely new, that can take an idea or an experience and completely transform it into something entirely new. That is, for me, that's what gets me up every single day. It's a tremendous opportunity, and it to be honest, it's an honor to have clients put that faith in you, to really take something that they understand and they know, and for you to turn it into something hopefully bigger and better, and come along with you on that journey. Yeah, that's what gets me going.
Nice. No, and I think that that last part that you were saying, that is you're blessed to have this kind of clients that really put their baby like in your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and for you to have that vision of everything that you have learned kind of put in into place that we're now this new thing that you just met is going to be bigger because of that. So I think that's pretty cool and exciting. I mean, I think it's just the rush of like, oh my goodness, I know where this can go. Let's do it. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And because you come from design and you have like again like the experience and how do you start putting all these user experience into place before like it was a thing, you understand the value of design. And me being a designer, and when usually this is something that you hear all the time, like, oh, it's so hard to convince people about what we do and the value that it brings. So before we go into how to bring tension and make sure the tension bring value, what do we talk about more about the design and how did you start building that trust with your clients to make them understand that this is a good opportunity for them to pay attention?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Basically, there's a couple of aspects to that. One is you have to do any form of innovation or any form of redesign at scale. You have to bring all of the players to the table, and work with them and share ideas with them and learn from them. And if you can work together in a multidisciplinary fashion, for one, you get buy-in early, and that's very helpful. But one of the things that we focus on, or I've always focused on in my career, is how do we measure the value of experience, which is rather amorphous, and difficult to do in many aspects. But if you can look at the value of, let's say, a chat feature, or a self-serve feature that may cost a large amount of money for an organization to build, but delivers a better experience for the customers. That's not often enough from a business perspective. But if you can tie that to a reduction in cost or effort hours for a call center, then you start to actually bind those experiences to benefits to the business directly. And when you can do that, and when you can speak their language and understand the challenges that they're facing and the objectives that they have, then you're having one conversation. You're not necessarily having two parties speak against each other or towards each other without listening where the other party sits. At the end of the day, it's really, as an experience designer, our job is to take all of these parts from a business perspective, from a design perspective, and bring them together and translate them. It's our responsibility to be that chef that takes these things and puts them together and creates something even more magical. And the only way to do that is to be able to speak to each of your counterparts in a way that they understand and illustrate that you understand them.
Oh, I love that analogy because I feel like if you're a chef and you have, I don't know, 5 different ingredients, when you test them by their own, maybe they will bring powerful flavors to the other ones, but that means that you need to understand each flavor to be able to combine them perfectly. So yes, I love to watch like cooking shows, and I usually love that part when at the end the judges said, oh, I love this combination, how these empower. Anyway, that's a great analogy. But then when we come to design, I know that there's a lot of misconception about what we do and what are the expectations of design in a project. So if you can tell me maybe, I don't know, 3, 5, a couple of misconceptions that you know.
Certainly. From a user experience perspective, I think the number one misconception is that we are picking templates and patterns out of a library and slapping them onto a page, and just basically building experiences out of Lego, which is definitely not the case. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking best practices or patterns, but again, it's a matter of the right ingredient in the right dish, and how that ingredient, as you so aptly put, has repercussions and impacts on all the other ingredients that you have. So that's one. Two, that design is not business. And I think that's the number one biggest misconception in my perspective. Design is and always has been about business. Otherwise, it's called art. Everything that we do from a design perspective, and this can go back to traditional graphic design as well, it's about communication. It's about building the personality, the purpose, and the meaning into the DNA of an experience. And it's about doing the right thing for your customers, but also for the business. And I know that's like, I keep kicking that like a dead horse, but that's really what it is about finding that balance. And design, I guess a third one would be that design can come in after the product's been planned. That's a recipe for disaster, because as much as you may come up with great ideas and features and concepts, people don't become loyal to features. They become loyal to experiences. And that, from that respect, design has to be involved as early as the product even is conceived.
Yes, love that. And I was thinking while you were talking about design is not business, I remember like Simon Sinek from Start With a Why saying, if you don't consider like people in all the parts of the business, then you are not considering business. And that's exactly what we do in design. Like our main focus is always as people and how we communicate with them and make them feel like they're home, and what they are doing, they know it since day one, even though maybe this is the first time that they see what we just create. So I love that part because that's what we do. We make sure that they feel like a star, like VIP treatment when they come to us. So that's pretty cool. I lost my questions. Okay, now that we have a little more better idea of why it's important design, the misconceptions that they may be out there. Now we can start talking a little bit how we work in the team, and this is going to be what we came for. Tension, please. So and sometimes, and honestly, me being new into design and working into a multidisciplinary team, sometimes this is hard for me to really keep bringing like a strong voice in design. Yes, because like you were saying, they could be cool features, like developers can have all these like amazing things that they can do, but if we don't put them in the right place, and if us as a designers keep quiet and we just say yes to everything, it won't relate at the end of the day. So how we as a designers have a strong voice in a multidisciplinary team? How do we make sure that we are heard?
So I think it's fundamental with any form of communication. If you want to be heard, first you have to listen. And it's imperative that we understand the challenges and the concerns that other members of our team who are far more skilled in the work that they do than we ever will be. But if we can understand where they're coming from, understand the concerns that they may have, and understand the challenges that they're facing, and we can speak to those, then we're establishing a baseline where there is trust. There is a shared vision, almost, for how that project can play out. And in that respect, if we listen to our counterparts and we understand where they're coming from, then they will be more willing to do the same for us. So that's a number one fundamental. I'm not saying that every UX designer should go out there and learn how to code, but at the same time, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I feel for me, in my team right now, what I have enjoyed the most, honestly, is kind of building the relationship and taking the time to talk to different stakeholders and say, hey, how we can improve what we're doing, and how I can make it easy for you and you can easily make it for me. And I feel like this is not like like an instant thing. Like any relationship takes time, and any relationship takes is putting the time to it. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that part of like making sure that you're listening and knowing what is happening in the other side, because it's, at the end of the day, it's not just about you.
Yep.
But then we get to the point that we have so many different stakeholders, yes? And like you were saying, okay, so maybe you don't need to code, but you need to know what is going on, like have the basic understanding with developers. But we have so many stakeholders, and how do we keep up with everybody, and how do we know how to talk to each of them? Because I think this is when the magic starts coming in.
Yeah. So one, at least we need to understand what the motivations and the objectives are for each of our stakeholders. We may not need to know the granular details of their in and out of their day to day, but we do need to understand why they are approaching things in the way that they do. The other thing that UX designers tend not to do enough is explain, reason, and justify why they are making the decisions they are making in their experiences. I know for me, in the early part of my career, I just assumed that people thought or saw it that way as well. So I didn't explain it well enough. If we're talking about an experience, and let's say that there's a bit of a conflict occurring from a business perspective or from a technical perspective around this one feature that we know from an experience perspective is going to streamline the entire experience, and it's just one piece It's a little bit of code that they have to write, or a lot of code in certain circumstances, or it costs a certain amount of money, but it's the thing that holds everything together. It's that keystone component of the experience. If we're not explaining not just one step, but 2 steps ahead of the value and the benefit of that particular experience, why it has been designed, what the impacts will be if it is not present, and as much as possible tying that to any form of KPI or metric that you can have access to, then we're doing ourselves a disservice as designers. Because as designers, we all think these things. We may not even be conscious of it happening in our head, but we know, like, that's right. I don't know why it's right, but it's right is not good enough, right? It's our responsibility to pay attention to those subconscious cycles in our head, to take note of why and what the reasoning behind our design decisions are, so that we can communicate them to our stakeholders. And I'll be honest, just as an example, I've worked with technical teams where I had something that I'd come up with and I thought it was brilliant, and they thought it was not worth building and super complex. And we have a conversation. I understand where they're coming from. They understand where I'm coming from. And if I've explained the value, the benefit to the user or to the business, either we will come to an agreement on how to create that, or in many cases, the developer will come back with an even better idea, a more efficient and more optimized method that will deliver a similar or equal experience. Yeah, we have to go back and redesign some things, but we've worked together and we've created a better platform and a better product as a result. And you can't get that kind of collaboration, you can't get that kind of sharing if you don't establish that shared trust.
Oh yeah, no, yes, definitely that last part when you talk to them, it's like, oh, I have this, and this is just cool idea, and yeah, they would say, no, this is really hard. But then they start, yeah, like you were saying, they're the master of their knowledge, and they know what to do, so they come with these even better solution and faster for them to build. So at the end of the day is how can we improve that relationship, and is that by sharing our thoughts and our ideas, and they will make it better. Again, if you have in a team of chefs said, okay, I know these like, I don't know, I'm Latina, so it's like, oh, I think it would be great to bring plantains here, because it will bring like exposure these flavors. You will don't know because you are not Colombian. But I think because we start talking about this, then we will have like an amazing combination of food. Yes, yeah.
Absolutely.
I love plantains. I don't know if you have tried them fried.
Yes,
they're like really good. Yes. We eat them all day long in Colombia. Like, anyway,
nice.
I could talk forever about Colombian food. Now we come to the point, it's like, okay, we've been having a great communication, but then are going to be conversations that they don't flow this easily. And sometimes we avoid that, and we say, okay, yes, whatever you said, let's do it, because I don't want to bring tension to the conversation. So how do we maybe intentionally bring tension and make sure that is going to empower everybody to work better, and at the end have a better result?
Excuse me. Excellent question. So I like to think of it, and I've changed this since the first time we spoke, but I like to think of it as a rope, and people that are pulling on either side of a rope. And the objective for that rope is to be as tight and as straight as possible. And for each side, you want to be pulling for what's right for your own side. So let's say it's technology, or let's say it's business, or let's say it's design, or let's say it's experience. When you're pulling on that, every single time you compromise, you loosen the rope. You loosen the rope on both sides. And what that happens is you just get this little droopy little rope. And that's what happens when you compromise, or both sides compromise on projects. The idea is you want everybody to be pushing for the best from their own perspective. And that requires, one, tension in that rope because everyone needs to be pulling, but it also creates a sense of tension within the team. And I don't necessarily mean tension in the sense that, you go home and you tell your partner that you want to actually kill your coworkers or what have you. But it's a matter of having a level of mutual respect for each other, but still fighting for what you know is right, from an experience perspective, and standing your ground. I've built my entire career on potentially sometimes standing too strong on certain points earlier on, but when I believe that something is critical to the experience, it's very difficult for me to let that bone go, let's say. But when you work again together, if you start the project together, you go through discovery, you go through strategy together, you start looking at prototyping together. And when I say together, I mean from technology perspective, from business perspective, from design, that we all need to be part of that initial phase of the project. And when you do that, you run into challenges, you find solutions together, and it builds camaraderie. And when you're able to build that camaraderie through shared experiences and shared challenges, and come out the other side of it, uh, something magical happens in the team. It doesn't become one siloed group on one side and another siloed group on another side, or multiple siloed groups just trying to get their own part done. And I'm focused on this. You become an actual team, and you, instead of focused on experience or focused on the business side or focused on the technology, you focus on the product itself. And when that happens, then everyone is working towards the same goal, and the intent of I want to have my voice heard, or I want my side to not lose out on what I'm working on or focused on, that falls to the wayside, and everyone starts working together. And when that happens, I'll say it again, magical things can happen with product development. But it really can only happen if everyone, one, is standing their ground, pushing for the best, but at the same time, holding hands and running towards a finish line together. And it's not always possible, but when that does happen, that's where magic and great products are built.
I don't know. I'm a Survivor fan, and I think when you were talking about the ropes, I don't know if you watch Survivor, but they have these a competition that is like I don't know, 5, 6 people. They have like something in the middle, and their ropes coming out,
Hmm.
and then you have to have these blocks that you go and put in the middle,
Okay.
and you create a word. And what is really cool is that if everybody in the team have tension,
Hmm.
when that one person go and put the block, that's when it's stable, and that's when they are able to complete the word. So I think, oh, this is like Survivor, and I think that's one of my favorite competition or challenges that they face, because it's about everybody listening and said, okay, go slow. No, no, no. It's hold on. Let me tension a little more. So again, if you have the chance to watch it, I think you will really like it, because
I'll
it's
check it out.
exactly what you were talking about.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So if now that we know all the good things about bringing tension and how to talk to different stakeholders and how to make sure the design is heard, do you have any like final tips to make it like, okay, I know this is at the end of the day, this is you practicing and making sure that you do different things and you make mistakes and you learn from them and you and you go, because that's what happened with you, and this is what you can now speak about it. But if you can give us I don't know, more than couple tips to make sure that we bring tension and is healthy for the team, how we can do that.
Sure. So number one, as a designer, um, your output is only as good and diverse as your input. So consume anything and everything you possibly can. Um, from a technical standpoint, from a business standpoint, read, learn, pay attention. Um, Psychology is such a critical component to what we do, that I spent years reading about psychology with no intent other than just to be able to create better experiences. But when you stop consuming new ideas, new thoughts, especially those that are outside your particular realm, what happens is that the ideas you generate become stale and stagnant. So always try to continuously be learning, and learn outside your comfort zone, because the greatest thing that we can do as designers is push the boundaries for ourselves, but also for our clients and for our users. So that's one. Two, I would say, take risks in your design, preferably before testing. But always try to push the boundaries of your work, to try to custom tailor your vision for each project, as closely as possible to the business and user needs as possible. And always think in terms of your moonshot from an experience perspective, but design for MVP. So I think, for me, those two are critical in design. The other thing that is absolutely important is having enough of a foundational knowledge of every aspect of a project. Going back to that chef thing, like you wouldn't throw in an ingredient that you're not familiar with, and mess up a recipe that you do know is already good. But definitely learn as much as you possibly can, and speak to your counterparts on their level, as best as possible, and in the language that they understand. And lastly, to legitimize our work, to legitimize our ideas. I think as an industry in general, design needs to be more focused on metrics, KPIs, and business casing, for each of the components of an experience that we're proposing. You're not going to get people in a business saying they're going to start a new venture, or a new arm of the business without a business case. And from an experience perspective, whether it be a web or software or what have you, or even features within that, if we're not thinking about what the benefit and cost, and long-term value of each of those things is, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're making it harder for ourselves to be heard, and we're not coming across like we're actually there for the business. We're there for the user, which is a very, very common misunderstanding in UX, mostly because the word user is in it. But early UX designers will focus more on the user, and be like, I am the champion of the user. It's my job to make things excellent for the user. And what that does is it actually puts you in conflict with the business. And that is not an easy place to get out of. And again, as UX designers, this is why I specify it's our job to find that balance, or that tension, between the customer and the business needs, and find the right bridge to build to make sure both are established.
Oh, yeah, nice. Thank you. Okay. So, and I think this kind of brings us mostly to the end, to last question, but I think it's going to be a long one. That is about your business. And I think I was just thinking, what I wanted to ask that I didn't write down, but I feel like I will ask you while you were talking. But why don't you tell us about tension? How did it start? Why did you come up with this? And what do you do?
So as I mentioned, I had a business earlier on, that I kept running for about 18 years. But it was just mostly me. I had some contractors and what have you. And I was working on, a mix of startups and large enterprise clients. One to sort of balance fun and finance, but you got to have that mix. And when my son was born, we're going back 12 years now. Um, I wanted to have a little bit more stability and went client side, and worked for large organizations. I worked at one of the big consultancies afterwards, and lastly, I went to work at another startup as their chief experience officer. And to be honest, it um, what I realized after those experiences was that the traditional way of doing UX in large organizations, the traditional way of how we're positioned within the process, really doesn't resonate with my work or my passion for the work. And I would say the two things that jumped out at me were, one, how do we bring every single experience project back to meaning and purpose, which is something that can be very, very challenging, both for startups and for large enterprise. For a company that's been around a long time, it's very easy for them to stray from their original purpose and meaning. And for a startup, you may not know what it is yet. You're still trying to find that product market fit, but or you're just you're putting your MVP together with like chewing gum and popsicle sticks. But both of those situations really, really benefit from going back to clearly defining the meaning and purpose of the organization, and using that to drive the business side, the experience side, and the product side. Once you do that, regardless, across all of the potential clients, and we do this with almost every one of our clients now, is we go all the way back to there. And at first, most clients are like, I know what we're here for. I know what we do. And by the end of it, they're like, we didn't know. We thought we knew, but we didn't. And there's we work with multiple disciplinary teams throughout this process. And there'll be people from one side of the business are like, I had no idea this is why we do this. People talk, they say the same things and they hear completely different things. So once you establish that, it's really amazing what you can do and create that shared understanding and work together. So that was kind of the biggest thing that I felt was missing. And we used that as the core of what tension became and how we approach it. We took an approach where we wanted to balance or create the next level of balance, tension, between those frequently disparate viewpoints and perspectives. We always ensure that technology is involved in our projects, whether they're from the client side or not. They're involved in the earliest stages. We do the same with product. We do the same with marketing. Everybody's voice is part of this process. If you think about marketing and experience, it's easy to see that there are very different intents between marketing and experience. But if you look at the process that marketing teams go through to establish what their strategies and their plans are, it all starts from the user. It all starts from the market. It's very, very similar. There's a tremendous amount of crossover. And when you begin to realize that teams that often see themselves as different or doing things differently are actually after the same pieces of information and the same objectives, then you start to realize that it's not about your team versus my team. We have the same goals. We have the same objectives. We do different things with the data. We do different things with the information that we learn, but we all start from the same place. And that that really begins to build that common language, and that common objective and goal. And that's really what we wanted to start Tension, and focus on, is really creating and fostering those environments where multidisciplinary teams can work together, can respect each other, and find that tension where every end of the rope is taught, so you can create those words and those magical products on top of it. Because at the end of the day, one person lets go of the rope, someone's falling down.
Yeah, no, I love, and I think this kind of brings us to the beginning when I ask you like, what makes you come out of bed, and I think I really like the part that you say, I work in, like, I have my company, then I needed a little more balance, and I went to work for people, and I realized that this is not what I stand for. But I think just understanding what you like and be critical about what you're doing at the moment, and say, how can I improve this? Not just because at the end of the day, this is not just an improvement for you, but it's like an improvement for people, for your clients, for your team. So I think being honest about what you like and how you can get better at it is really powerful. Because and I understand that not everybody can just say, hey, I don't like what we're doing at work, I'm just going to go out and find something else, because it's not easy. But I think just having those thoughts and said, hey, I think we can do something better, that's a great step to start. So I remember the question. I was thinking, okay, so what it is to work in your own company and have have this consultancy, and how is that work? Like, what it is like a day to day for you, or like a week? I mean, I think it's different every day, but if you can kind of share with us.
So, I mean, we have a variety of clients. We have a variety of industries that we're servicing. We have a variety of different products and different types of products that we're working on constantly. So it's always exciting. Like, there's no day is the same. I think my average day probably consists of a bunch of meetings, internal and external, jumping on a whiteboard with team members and just fleshing out some new ways to approach an experience, and spending more time in my sketchbook than I would traditionally. But I find the tactile experience of pencil and paper when trying to map out an experience is very, very important. And it's a lot easier to throw away a piece of paper than it is to throw something that you have like consciously saved to your hard drive as a wireframe. And constantly trying to find ways to simplify and reduce the level of complexity or cognitive overload of the capabilities and the features of the products that we're working on. And it's a challenge every single day with the product, but also with running a business. Like, every couple of months, it's like the business is very different, and we have to adapt and we have to learn, and we have to optimize. So on one hand, we're pushing our clients to create better experiences overall, and understand their purpose, their meaning, and refine down what they really stand for. And one thing that we found to be tremendously helpful here is we take our own medicine. So we go through that process internally, and we look at what we're doing and how we can make it better, and how we can simplify, and how we can make it more efficient and more informative and enjoyable for our clients. And we're constantly looking at ways to improve our client service and our rigor around how we bring our clients along the journey of design. And that's really every day. Like, that's my day to day, and I enjoy optimizing the experience of our company, as much as I enjoy optimizing the experience of the products that we work on. We've got products that we're working on that are blockchain based. We have those that are in mining. We have those that are AI based. We have those that are in sales and marketing technology. So it's a perpetual learning experience, and we're constantly just trying to consume as much information and learn as much about our clients as possible, so that we can be better as a service provider and as a partner to our clients. Yeah, it's all about learning and all about challenges, and it's all about trying to always be better.
Mhm.
And it's fun. I love it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I know that I don't have these questions in the ones that I provide to you, but at the beginning, or I think one of the tips that you gave is like learn. Yes, keep reading things and keep taking everything that's out and learn it. Yes. If you could share two, maybe I don't know, 2, 3 books or a podcast or
Mm.
anything for people to something that you like. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Um,
Sorry.
uh, so the design of everyday things. I'm sure everyone's read
Mhm.
that one. Anything that Don Norman puts
Mhm.
out, really. I would say something that probably is not on your average UX designer's reading list would be Abraham Maslow, The Hierarchy of Needs, which is a very interesting uh, analogy, because when you think about the hierarchy of needs, it's about baseline, just survival, and then enlightened at the top. And if you can think about that from an experience perspective, is how do you ensure that you're covering off all the needs of your user, not just like ticking the boxes, but how do you get to the top of that pyramid and start creating experiences that are delightful, that are enjoyable, that are just more than intuitive. It just feels right, and that, I think, you need to think about the needs of the user, and the psychology of human beings, to be able to factor that in. So I would definitely say that's a tremendously important one. I I'll be honest. I also love pretty much anything from Rosenfeld. They have a great series of books. I'm currently reading Product Management for UX Designers, which is great. And there's a very interesting book that also just came out that I'm in the midst of, by Tony Fadell, which is called Build. And Tony is his writing style, which he admittedly uh, states right in the front of the book was written by someone else. But it his experience of learning, failing, learning, failing, learning, and then creating the iPod. It's a very interesting perspective, because he comes at it more from a technical side, but he's a very, very design centric technologist. So it gives a little bit of a perspective from the other side, but there's a lot of learnings in there in terms of product development, and how looking at things from a singular focal point with blinders on can be a fundamental challenge, not just to yourself or to the product, but to the company that you're working for. So I think there's a lot in there. Yeah, that those would be my recommendations at the moment.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Again, thank you for spending your birthday with us. Happy
Absolutely.
birthday. I hope
Thank
that
you.
they bring you a big cake if you like cakes. I honestly, that's what I like about anyone's birthday, is just going to eat cake.
Yeah.
But enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and how to bring again tension and make it such a powerful tool for a multidisciplinary team, and making design shine in what we do. I think is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, and for everybody that is watching us. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe so you can meet people like Adam. And yes, thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.